Now, what are the things that we have seen in case of XPath? We can do the same thing in CSS as well. CSS selector is another very important locator and most widely used in the industry. There are some people who don't prefer using XPath. They only rely completely over CSS selector as a locator to locate dynamic elements or to locate complex elements, right? So, like there's always been a debate, like which one is better, whether we should go for XPath or whether we should go for CSS. See, in my opinion, which ever you are comfortable with, if you are more used to XPath, then you can stick to XPath, or if you are more habitual of using CSS, then you can go for CSS selector. And even you can use combination of both XPath and CSS in the same project as well. So some people, they say CSS are faster over XPath, but if you're working on latest browsers, you'll never face any slowness using XPath. It could be, but only fraction of milliseconds, right? Not more than that. So both are very widely used. You can work with CSS as well, and you can work with XPath as well. Although the syntax is different for CSS, and there are other a bit differences as well. Like in case of XPath, we have seen that we can move up and down in the hierarchy. Up and down in the sense, if I talk about like this element. From this element, I can go to the parent of this element as well, and even I can go to the child of this element as well. But in case of CSS, if you are on this element, you can only move forward in the hierarchy. You can go to the child, but you cannot go to the parent from this child element, right? So this is one of the major difference. And then the other difference is that in case of XPath, we can also locate elements with the text of an element, right? Contains text or equal text. But in case of CSS selector, there is no way we can locate the element using the text. So these are a couple of difference in XPath and CSS selector. Now we're going to see CSS selector as well in depth inside in this lecture. In the last two lecture, we have already studied about XPaths in detail. So if you have not gone through last two lectures, just go through it and get yourself comfortable in XPath and using different internal tools for finding XPath and some third-party tools as well that we have discussed. Right. So in this lecture, we're going to see how we're going to work with CSS. What if I want to use only CSS? I can automate an entire website using CSS as well. Now, in case of XPath, if you remember, we have for this particular element, we have written an XPath, like this is the element. So XPath, we have written it something like $X. Then in double quotes, I have written XPath start from double backslash tag name attribute was ID and value is identifier ID. So this is how we located an element using XPath. Now if I want to use CSS, in case of CSS, there is no double backslash and no @. So this is the CSS of this element. But Chrome will not find it because double like $X is for XPath and for CSS, it's $. So this is the CSS of an element, right? This is the CSS and this is also the CSS. How the below one is formed, we're going to form this thing as well, right? I'll be showing you how we can form a CSS, something like this as well. But before we just started, so this is the very first syntax we have seen so far. Now concatenation can be done in CSS as well. So same way, if I want to concatenate any other attribute, let's say type equal to email, I can do it simply like this. And I can keep on concatenating attributes, right? Same way, we'll just note it down in notepad file as well so that I can share it with you at the end of this lecture. So this is a syntax, this is concatenation. Then we have something called as contains and starts with, ends with in case of CSS as well. So if in case this element is dynamic, the last part is dynamic. So I want to inspect this element with starts with is caret sign over here. So if I write caret sign, you can see it locates the element. So this is what starts with is. Same way, if the last part is constant and the starting part is dynamic, so ends with is dollar sign. So this is ends with in CSS. So this is ends with. And if starting, ending both are dynamic, then contains is a string. So this is what contains is. Contains. Now, at times, like I said, you can form up a CSS something like this as well. So CSS, like if in case I don't use this thing, I can simply form up a CSS with the ID of this element. In case of CSS, the ID starts from hash. So hash and the ID. So this is ID. When you want to work with ID, just provide the ID with hash. There's something called as tag name. So tag name is simple, the tag name itself. So tag name, in case you want to find input elements, you can simply give input. And along with that, you want to give ID, hash identifier ID, like this, right? So this is what combination that you can give. And even at times there is a class. So if in case you want to find the element with a class, simply say dot class. Now there are two elements with the same class, right? So we can make it unique as well. We can concatenate tag. So second element has got the same tag. We'll see how we're gonna make it unique, but this is how using dot we can find the class name. So dot is for class name. Class name, right? At times we have class something like this. This is the class attribute. So I want to find this element. I'll give dot, but it is not able to find the element. This is because these are composite classes. These are more than one classes. After every space, there's a new class. So you need to give a dot, remove space, and give dot with every class. So this is what the CSS of this element, right? This is what the CSS, how you're going to form it, right? So tag name is just the tag name. Hash ID is identifier ID. And then with this identifier ID, this element, we have class as well. This is class. So I can say dot and the class, right? And if in case you want to concatenate any attribute, you can say type equal to email. So this is how you'll be forming up a unique CSS for this element, right? And then now you want to go in the hierarchy, like you started with this parent. Parent has got a class as this. So first tag div dot the class. This is the class. So two matching nodes. I want to go to the child. Child, how you going to go to child? You need to write this sign, greater than sign, then the child name, right? So again, 2, why we are getting 2? Because there is another element having the same hierarchy. So we'll make it unique, don't worry. So we are over here right now. Now I'll again say div, and you can even give the class. So say dot class. It will locate this element, right? If I don't give dot class, then it will show me 6 elements. So 3 over here and 3 down the hierarchy where the second element is there. If in case you want to go to the first child in this hierarchy, see we are over here. This is the parent. And when I say parent, then div, it gives me all 3 child. So that's the reason we are getting 6, because 3 are over here and 3 are down the hierarchy, right? So what I can do, I want to make it unique. I mean, I want to find the first child. So I'm going to say first child will return me the first child. See, div dot the class, tag dot the class. This is the first child. The last child in the hierarchy, how are we going to get it? Say last child. See, this is the last child with this class, right? If in case you want to get second child, you'll not say second child, you'll say nth child. 1 will give you 1, 3 will give you third, 2 will give you the second one. So this is how you're going to go to the second child. So this is what we have. First child, we have seen first child, then we have seen last child, and then we have seen nth child. Now I want to make this as unique, so we can start from parent. So parent, we have started from this parent. Now our element is the last in the node, right? So this, if I go a little bit up, there's another parent div. So second has the same hierarchy. So we are over here. Now I'll go again one up, div, role presentation we can try. So div and role equal to presentation. Again, we have 2 child, right? Like both at the same hierarchy. So we are over here, role equal to presentation. If I go one above, maybe this JS name we have not tried. So instead of role, maybe the role is common, but JS name is unique. So this is the unique element. Over here, if you want to remove this class and use it like this, you can do it like this way as well. So this is how you can form up a unique CSS by combining parent and their properties, right? So this is all about CSS selector. Now you can use Xpath, you can use CSS, you can use combination of both Xpath, CSS, and other locators, straightforward locators like ID, name, tag name, class name, link text. If there is a link, you can use the link text, partial link text. So all major locators you can use, and you can try to handle any element easily on a web. If you know these techniques, you should be able to handle all elements easily on the web, because elements are what that you see in HTML. These are one single tag is equal to one single element, right? So if you are able to make these things, if you are able to make these things handle uniquely, you can handle any element uniquely on the web. And if you are able to handle all elements uniquely on the web, you can automate any website easily, right? So just try going through these 3 lectures where we have studied about how we can handle different complex element or dynamic elements using Xpath and CSS, and try to practice around these stuff. All right. Thank you.